Episode 195 of Gaming EBS coming to you Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. Welcome to Gaming NBS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I am one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show, folks. Good to have you on board. I do, Sean.
What's up, Brett? Hey, wait. Hey, what's up, sleepy face?
Yeah, I took a little nap. A little old man nap time there. Feeling better.
Old man nap time.
Busy weekend. Go to the garage, did a lot of crap around the house.
That sounds fantastic.
I hadn't needed doing. Holy crap. Very lots of stuff. Very lots of stuff. Anyway, anything new and exciting?
New and exciting. Not that I can think of.
All right, then. Well, I guess we might as well get right into announcements, eh?
We shall.
All right, so what the heck have we got here? We have GameholeCon submissions still open, and EverCon submissions are open. Link in the show notes, obviously. Duh. Hello, people. Get on it.
Just keep in mind, Brett just woke up. So.
Yeah, I'm a little crabby. No, I'm kidding. Kind of not kidding. God damn it, people are reminding you of this every week. Get out there. Do something about it. Anyway, that's happening. I believe QCC also has their submissions open as well. I forgot to check and get that done this weekend because I'm going out to QCC, so I got to go double check that stuff too. Anyhow, anything else new and exciting, Sean?
Nope, still nothing new and exciting, Brett.
I thought maybe for announcements. We were talking about regular personal stuff before.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
You dick.
don't poke the bear, ladies and gentlemen.
It's going to be a good show right there. You can tell.
Don't poke the bear.
Random encounter. Your turn.
All right. Let's go to a random encounter. All righty then. Did you want me to start, Brett?
Yes, please.
All right. John Steve comments on Brett Feels. Brett, at the start of every session, hand someone in your group the Rod of Truth. Or pick a prop. Anyone with this item has the floor and can bring up anything that is currently on their mind.
A talking stick. Nice.
Good or bad. This person cannot be interrupted until they relinquish the rod. They may hand it, no throwing, to anyone else who wishes to speak or simply put it on the table. After everyone's had a chance to partake of the rod's absolute power, a great cheer of dilly dilly might be in order. I think Brett should do dilly dilly right now.
Yeah, that's what I should do. Yeah. Huh?
Seriously, though, great pod. I've had similar feelings from time to time since I'm pretty much the GM for our group of many years. Honesty is absolutely required in these situations. If needed, you can still salt the earth later on.
Very true. Thank you, John. Good stuff, man.
Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly indeed, Sean.
Dilly dilly indeed.
Yes. Might have to get that on a t-shirt next.
Dilly dilly.
All right, who's up next here? Crimfan. Commented over on, let's see here. Excuse me, he's talking about our Part-Time Gods of Fate discussion we had with Aloy. Part-Time God sounds a lot like a Supers game, particularly one set up in the form of Marvel's approach. One of the things that made Spider-Man interesting as a character was that he's basically a kind of ordinary schmuck who struggles to pay the rent and has girl trouble. DNPCs in superhero games, which is dependent on player characters, for those who are not aware of that acronym. DNPCs in superhero games and other obligations set up these kinds of issues. I think I had some things like this happen playing Vampire, where PCs sometimes had intrusions from whatever vestige of life they had led. Of course, it's not exactly the same because presumably the whole worship aspect is there, but still similarities. For the right group, this would be cool, definitely. But you're right, definitely not for certain types of players. Yeah, Crimfan, I hadn't thought about that, but neither Sean nor I play superheroes role-playing games usually, and which is kind of funny because you don't get a hell of a lot more superpower than Vampire, Amber, or our part-time gods. Talk about, wow, lots and lots of power. But yeah, interesting thought. And you're right, that is a lot like the Spider-Man setup too. So good stuff, man. Thank you as always, Crim Fan. Over to you, sir.
Brett plays a superhero every day.
Yeah, guy who goes to office.
Hey man, Clark Kent, man, he had the Daily Planet.
That's true, he did. Well, that did make for a lot of exciting reading. Clark Kent goes to Daily Planet day in, day out for 1 year. Nothing happens.
True. All right, next one. Hello, BSers. I liked the game review of Cold Shadows and would enjoy other game reviews. I never have enough time to try all the games myself and always enjoy hearing about games that are out there. When I'm lucky to attend conventions, I always try to play some game systems I've never played before just to see what they're like. Something I would highly recommend when you go to conventions, actually.
Dilly, says I.
That is great, Brett. Brett's waking up.
That's my new thing.
Speaking of conventions, I believe I heard Brett talk about having his kids on the show to give a review of Gamehole Con after it's over. I looked back through a few shows but didn't find the show to get the number. This sounds like a lot of fun. I'm often reminded by my wife that I have an overactive and sometimes odd imagination. But I know that I don't see through kids' eyes anymore. People who don't have to adult just simply look at stuff differently, and I always find it very interesting to hear their thoughts about gaming and just stuff in general. It's good to be reminded that there's this whole world thing going on out there, not just the narrow view I get from my own experiences. Anyway, I'm glad to hear that you feel you got the issues with your group worked out. This can happen to the best and tightest of groups. My home group has just started playing again this year after not playing as a group for almost 18 months. This came about with very similar circumstances as what you mentioned with your group. The gaming group social contract is sometimes a fragile thing. Sometimes it's wise to take a break, but if the core issues are not dealt with, they will show back up. Unfortunately, after a few months of playing together again, my group has lost one player, maybe a second. First, with the reason of, I have too many things going on in my life, which the rest of us are sure it's code for, I'm tired of playing with you guys. We have been friends for more than 15 years and continue to remain friends. The second, I'm pretty sure because his wife thinks he's got better things to do with his time. I don't have any sage advice or words of wisdom, just a couple of empty seats at the table. More than once in my 30-plus years of gaming, I have found that a group of good friends does not always equal a good gaming group. Great shows as always, gentlemen. Looking forward to the monster show of monsters. Keep the dragons slain and the dungeons clear. Thanks again for all you do on the show. Thomas at Beholder's Horde.
I'm glad it's not just me, Thomas. Sorry for your pain, but I'm glad it's not just me. Yeah, I was talking at one point about having Ilana and AJ on the show just to talk about gaming in general and perhaps after Con. I have not done that. We have not done that, so there is no episode for you to go back to listen to, but that's something that Sean and I have talked about with a little bit on the mics, obviously, and some off as well. So I think at some point I'll grab my two little ones and get them on the mics and have them talk about gaming. I think it might be interesting to Sean to ask him questions because they're kids, get their honest answers. What do you like best? Killing stuff? What do you like best? Taking his treasure? You know, I could see that happening. But anyway, yeah, very cool. Thank you, Thomas. And again, I think what you said at the very end there, a group of good friends does not always equal a good gaming group, is very true. I got people I work with that are pretty decent folks. They're great, but I don't think I want to game with them, you know? It's just, if you're lucky, the two groups kind of become one and the same, you know, if you're really fortunate. But otherwise, it's not always the case. That's very, very true. All right, man, anything else in the locker there?
No, I think that's it for Random Encounter. Thank you, everybody who has written in, commented. We appreciate it. Let's get into Random Encounter.
That was Random Encounter.
Well, let's get into
you check and see if I'm awake. I'm totally awake. I heard that.
Main topic. Yeah, let's get into the main. Yeah. All right, Brett, what are we talking about this week?
Well, we threatened our listeners with monsters, so let's bring out the monsters.
Rawr!
Rawr.
Rawr!
All right, so we want to talk about monster tweaks. Sean and I have toyed with this a little bit here and there, but just want to kind of focus on it. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, my goblins or my orcs or my, giants always do blah, blah, blah. And and this is the chance, kind of like when we built an encounter, Sean did one, I did one, is we'll start with Sean, talk about some critters or a critter he wants to talk about, and I'll pepper him with a few questions as to why or how or what he's doing and why he's doing it. And sometimes these types of discussions are even just as corny as like, hey, look, here's an idea, and it's okay. Most of our listeners, I think, are fairly savvy men and women, and the men and women who listen to us already know that you can do pretty much whatever you want with the monsters. That's your game, your monsters, whatever. You can do this. So chances are, I'm pretty sure both he and I chose creatures from a D20 background, so we'll stick with that. It's just kind of a general reference point. And we'll see where it goes from there. So, Sean, what's your critter or critters of choice here?
So I picked two, none that are they don't hold a significant place in my heart necessarily. I thought they were just two interesting ones that I wanted to bring up that seem to cover a couple different areas, I guess. I don't know, lack of better words.
Okay, so are these creatures that you use often when you want to mess with something? Or...
no, not necessarily.
Man.
Well, everybody knows I don't create a ton of original stuff.
That's true. No, that's fair.
So I figure I wouldn't want to create anything original in this episode. I mean, why start now?
Yeah, why be new and interesting now? Oh, wait. No, I'm kidding. That's harsh. Okay, no, fair though. I mean, the other piece when it comes to tweaking stuff is like how you play it. How do you talk about the monster? How do you engage with the players or the environment and whatever? So, all right, give me where do you want to start? Which one? You got two?
So I as per your request, Brett, I picked two.
Awesome. Which one?
So one is the Rust Monster,
and the other is
Knoll.
Nice. All right, let's go with the Rust Monster. What do you? So when you look at the Rust Monster, and because you tend to play package adventures and stuff, I mean, you and I have also played D&D long enough, or just been gaming long enough, that the Rust Monster in its various incarnations, probably a little bit different from first ed to second to third to 3.5 to Pathfinder and so forth. Sometimes they just vary in size and so forth. So is there a particular version of the Rust Monster that you like to lean into when you run a Rust Monster?
So there isn't necessarily, but I guess what I was thinking of was the tweaks I would make to the Rust Monster.
All right.
And one of the things I would make a tweak standard, for those that are not aware of what the Rust Monster is, because there may be somebody that has never encountered a Rust Monster.
That's true. Might as well lay it out there.
So the Rust Monster is scary.
If you're wearing plate armor, it is.
If you're like a heavy metal, then you do not want to run into a Rust Monster.
No, you do not.
So they could smell metal within 30 feet. Any non-magical weapon made of metal that hits the Rust Monster corrodes. After dealing damage, the weapon takes a permanent and cumulative -1 penalty to damage rolls. Now, this is 5e rules for those of you that are like, wait a minute. So I'm just using the 5e Rust Monster version. If its penalty drops to -5, the weapon is destroyed. Non-magical ammunition made of metal that hits the Rust Monster is destroyed after dealing damage. So if you're wearing plate armor, like Brett mentioned, or anything metal, chain,
shield, sword.
Shield, sword. Yeah.
And this is a creature it wants your metal. I mean, it eats the rust, right? I mean, that's what it does.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like you can be like, well, I'll just avoid this thing. No, it's going to creep up on you, or you're going to see it and go, what the hell is that? And take a whack at it. So what do you do? How do you tweak that thing? Sounds pretty straightforward.
So yeah, I would just tweak it and not make it metal. I would probably make it like leather. Hide.
Oh, change the thing in which it eats.
Yeah.
That's interesting because if you think leather, would you think, wow, then flesh is part of it, is leather, right?
I would say flesh, leather, hide based.
Like the stuff I'm made of.
Right.
Yeah, without this T-shirt, I have hide armor. It's not really tough hide armor, but it's still hide.
So I would probably drop some hints with the player characters as they approach a particular habitat that has. This would probably not be called the rust monster at this point. It'd probably be called the hide monster.
So when a rust monster touches something or something touches it, it turns the metal to rust and then it consumes it.
Okay. Well, maybe it's not the hide monster.
I like what you're doing though, because that suddenly becomes a ravenous fucking creature.
Yeah, so it would probably be where it would maybe eat the hides of animals, but not the animal itself. So if you came across the deer or stag,
it's been skinned.
It's been skinned because this thing has moved in and taken it apart that way.
Wow!
So it's not,
God, that's disgusting. I love it.
It's not the underneath the meat and potatoes, the muscle. It's the hide of whatever it looks for, and it's specifically probably I would make it like mammal based. I wouldn't probably go after like reptilian type. I mean, I guess you could.
Pulls the hide off like a tube sock and just devours the hide.
Yeah,
kind of the creature's basically been skinned alive.
Yeah, kind of like how a snake sheds its skin.
Yeah.
It would probably be something like that where it would just kind of remove the hide of the animal, including humans.
So when it touches you, it's almost going to have like a carrion crawler like paralysis then, wouldn't it?
And I would say that it doesn't have to be living hide. So if you're wearing leather armor...
Oh, you're safer there because they'll eat the armor and let you run away.
Potentially, but it's still, you got some hide on yourself, right? You got some skin.
And depending where it was sitting in that horrible dungeon, it's ravenously hungry at this point.
Yeah, maybe it's like because skin is kind of a weird thing, right? Hide is a kind of a weird thing. I mean, if you wanted to get into the scientifics of it to kind of justify how this monster and the ecology of the monster, I would just say that skin and hide are, I guess some people say it's dead. Well, skin cells are kind of dead, and maybe not. But it's the outside skin, right? It's like chicken has skin.
All right, so you attack a rust monster with your blade.
Right.
It turns the blade to rust and devours the rust. If this thing touches you, or it touches your leather armor, it falls off and it just starts devouring it.
Yeah.
Let's say it gets down to the point where it's just the mage and or the monk, and those flimsy little monk robes have fallen off. It gets you by the leg. Does it like start ripping off bits of your flesh like a mummy bandage? God, that'd be disgusting.
You could rip it off like a mummy bandage, or you can have the flesh start to corrode if you wanted to relate it back to.
Oh, like it liquefies it, like it sucks it off or something.
Yeah, maybe it sizzles. So it's kind of an acid thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That thing's fucking creepy now, man.
Hey. Brad's Gaming Group. You're welcome.
I like it, actually. That's like a rust monster mixed with a troll or something.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow.
I think there's going to be a little bit of a common theme, at least with the creatures I'm thinking of, like even the rust monster.
Well, it's interesting. Just something. So you're taking the rust monster and changing basically what it's threatening the party with what? Previously, it was threatening the party with destroying their metal, eat their gold.
Right.
And that was like the Zorn and stuff. It ate treasure.
Hey, wineskin, leather, armor, water skin. Anything that's like canvas, almost like canvas based, and like if you're playing D&D, a lot of stuff's made out of hide.
The gear muncher.
Could be like saddlebags. I mean,
yeah.
Anything leather, man, is
boots.
Like, boots, man. Imagine I'm gonna eat your boots, or I'm gonna liquefy them and then slobber up your boots, and then right after that's your feet.
Yeah, Jesus, that's creepy as hell. I love it. Wow. So you take the rust monster, change its diet, and now it's no longer the annoying thing you just plink with arrows because it might eat your metal. Or you go, well, fine, I'll throw this extra set of +1 chainmail I happen to be carrying, because every good adventurer in D&D carries like umpteen +1 swords or daggers or whatever in the classic sense, right? So fuck it, shunk. I'll throw the extra suit of chainmail at it. That'll keep it busy for us. So we can circumvent this creature. You throw the chainmail at it, it goes, whatever, dude. I want your skin.
So maybe if you're
standard demonic or like a devil, that thing's horrible. Wow.
Say you do have metal armor on, maybe that gives you a save for it to not detect you in that way, right?
Or it doesn't like you, right? It comes at you and it tastes that metal blessed by it.
Tastes like crap, right?
Don't like that.
But yeah, it smells that mage or even that rogu that's wearing leather. Something smells better than that.
So what made you think of this? What made you cross this? Was it like, hey, think of the troll or think of the acid or something? What made you come up with that?
Well, I think monsters are pretty easy to manipulate on a fundamental basis. So I think you take a monster specifically that has is its kind of thing. In the rust monster's case, it's got this one thing that people know it for fearing is eating the metal.
Yeah.
And if you just modify that, now there are monsters that are already modified, right? So if you look at golems, there's all kinds of golems. Iron golem, clay golem, flesh golem.
There were treasure golems back in 4E and stuff. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so somebody's already kind of tackled that. So you could take a golem and go, maybe I'll make it a bone golem. Oh, that's probably been done already.
Blood golem, been done, yeah.
Right.
But this I've not seen before.
Right, so you just take a regular monster and you give it a certain ability, a certain trait, certain special ability or innate magical trait, and tweak it. So you don't have to, you have to keep in mind kind of if you do play balance, Brett doesn't matter, he doesn't care. But if you say, well, Rust Monster is, in this case, a CR, is it what is it? I don't remember what it is.
Well, even if you don't do that, you've got a creature that was designed, at least in Brett's opinion, designed to remove metal from a party, right? Strip that loving plate mail and chain mail off that dwarf and the human fighter, right? Weaken them. Use resources. Right. I've now changed it from that. It's no longer a nuisance. Oh, it ate my shield. To, oh my God, it took my boots and my left foot. Right? This damn near becomes a green slime type of encounter, which is a lot more debilitating potentially.
Yeah, and so, okay, maybe it gets one of your boots, and it's not that big a deal. Okay, so Rust Monster's one half CR. So not a tough monster by any means. It's got 27 hit points, armor class 14, natural armor. You can keep all the stats the same. He just senses dark vision 60 feet. But that iron scent, you change that to like flesh scent or hide scent. Rust metal, you could say maybe liquefies hide and then devours it. And then you could leave the bite attack and then the antennae, which it has.
You basically turn the creature into a form of a carrion crawler in a way, and that's a scrounger, right?
Sure.
So it's going to normally, in a dungeon environment, it's probably not going to attack living things. It would be the dead leather, all that stuff that you're carrying with you is basically you stink like roadkill to this creature. So the creature's like, oh, here comes a big bag of really juicy boiled leather. That's just roadkill to them. It's dead flesh. So and once you start fighting back, it's going to be like, okay, it's used to fighting other creatures for the carrion it wants, and it's just kind of an animal response back and forth. Wow, okay. Damn, dude, that's cool. I like that.
So then what happens is if you could still keep the same rule where it takes damage to the item, and then once it hits a particular threshold, the item is destroyed. It could be liquefied, maybe devoured. But the nice thing about it is, it's not it could be deadly, it might not be deadly, but say it gets one of your boots. Well, guess what? Unless you got another second pair of boots, you're hobbling around with one boot on.
Well, we've talked about this episode back about gear, right? How important gear can be, and excuse me, messing with characters' gear, that resource perspective, and changing it this way. I mean, even Lovecraft ghouls, if I remember my Call of Cthulhu correctly, they ate dead flesh only. They were not about eating live flesh. The reason they would burrow underneath graveyards and stuff was so that they could get the dead bodies, because that's what they ate. They ate the dead, rotting flesh. So even if you didn't want to go so far as to have creepy ass flesh melting, sucking your, leg meats off like a Slurpee monster, if all it does it only eats carrion, only eats the dead flesh, which would therefore be the leather goods that you have on you. That's still different enough and the creep factor would be high, because you're not going to tell the characters or the players, oh yeah, don't worry, it'll only eat your leather straps, it'll only eat your boots. You're going to talk about the melting of the flesh, the devouring of this leather, That's going to... Wow, that's good, dude. I like that. That is well done.
So that's my first one. And then my second one would be the Gnoll. Now, I didn't go into a lot of detail about tweaking the Gnoll too heavily. So for those Gnolls look like dogs that stand up on hind legs.
Hyenas, actually.
Look like hyenas, yeah.
Which is, if you've not seen a hyena, right, go watch a nature film, look them up. They're scary fucking animals. The spotted hyena, whatever, the different types of hyenas in Africa, they're big, nasty, ugly, smelly. They've got jaws practically as strong as a lion's. They're just gigantic. Or gigantic power, I should say. Keep going.
So the Gnoll is, like Brett mentioned, hyena standing up. It's a CR half, another half CR kind of creature, unless you bump it up a few and give it some more beef. But dark vision, 60 feet, hide armor, has a rampage. So when the Gnoll reduces a creature to 0 hit points with a melee attack on its turn, the Gnoll can take a bonus action to move up to half its speed and make a bite attack. Actions are bite, spear, longbow. Some of the attacks. It's basically, I take a Gnoll as kind of like a human with just, it's turned into a dog kind of canine type. But what you can do is you modify it to make it more, maybe you make it a lycanthrope.
Okay, yeah.
Even a lycanthrope type trait. I even thought of, do you create a Gnoll and when the moon comes out, it turns into a human being? So kind of but I don't know. That doesn't really catch on to me that much. But Gnoll, so take a Gnoll, a normal Gnoll, and maybe give it regeneration. Oh shoot, what else can you give it? Maybe it's, if you cross it with lycanthropy, you can maybe make it blink in and out during the evening of a full moon or something like that. So it's still a Gnoll, and instead of turning into a werewolf or a lycanthropic Gnoll, maybe it blinks in between dimensions.
Instead of a blink dog, you got a blink Gnoll.
Yeah. But it only does it, so it takes half the traits of what lycanthropy does, and then part of what blink dogs do, and allow that to kind of mess things up. So if you're camping at night and you're on watch and you run into these, a normal Gnoll, I mean, you could probably dispense with them pretty easily. Now, you got to be careful with this when you start getting into blinking, because that could probably beef up the encounter pretty badly. You get 3 or 4 blinking and you can't hit any of them, or I don't even know what the deal is, if it's a disadvantage or 50-50 shot. I don't remember what that would look like. But you're the GM, make it up. But it'll only be under certain circumstances, right? So if you run into them during the day, they're normal Gnolls.
Yeah.
Run them at night, they've got some weird night traits.
Yeah.
Traits that only apply in the evening after the sun goes down.
You could do a cross with a Displacer Beast then too.
Right. Yeah.
You could do something along those lines. A buddy of my Alpha did this thing when he had us attacked by. We were just got our asses handed by this huge, basically an army of Gnolls invaded this town, and we were just getting pummeled and beaten and had to run back. And it was a really great intro actually to the campaign. But one of the things that we witnessed while we were in this tower defending it was the Gnolls had these huge hyenas that they'd bring with them on chains and whatever. and they would pile all the bodies up of all the slain and let the gnolls eat them. And we're like, okay, that's just disgusting. They're eating the dead bodies. Well, after a certain number of them, these gnolls would be, these hyenas were gorged. They were just to a point where they looked like they were going to explode. Then they kind of wander off like all this kind of crazy, food coma dog thing, and then fall down, start screaming, and boom, a gnoll would burst out of its stomach. Like, oh my God, that's how they're making gnolls? This is disgusting. It was all gnolls. Essentially, what we learned that's how they breed. That's how they spawn. They take hyenas, and through this bizarre ritual process and the devour of the men and women that they slew, they were creating gnolls that way. That itself made them creepy as fuck because it was a demonic kind of conjuration that created them. It was not something normal. Not that a gnoll is normal, but I like that. That's another kind of a take a critter and mix it a bit. You could even have a gnoll have Displacer Beast hide cloaks, or that they've killed blink dogs, use their blood, make a potion or something.
Well, that's a good point.
That tribe has them, they hunt them down, and they use that power, and this is how they juice themselves. It's a special form of magic that this tribe or clan has figured out, and that's what they're using. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, if you want to, that's a good point, Brett. So with the rust monster, flesh monster, whatever you want to call that modification with gnoll, or even just any creature, you could magically take the trait of like you said, the Displacer Beast hide, and then that allows them to use that main thing of that creature now is on the gnoll.
Yeah,
right?
that now they're displaced.
Right.
They just, oh shit, it makes it harder. Because normally, a gnoll being a half CR.
Yes.
So from a balance perspective, it means two people could take one down normally.
Right. So So if you want to buff them up a little bit, you give them one of these cloaks from a Displacer Beast, and maybe now they're a 2 CR, 3 CR. Who knows? And who gives a shit, right? Because it's screw balance, right, Brett?
Oh yeah, normal. I wouldn't worry so much about the CR piece. I love the cool factor of that. Is that it just changes the creature into something that your jaded gamers like Brett and Sean will be like, wow, I haven't seen that before. Which is the thing the Alpha did with his gnolls when they created gnolls by feeding, as I said, and then the eruption and the gore were like, oh my God, that's just fucking disgusting. Damn, that's creepy, man. Good stuff. We were all kind of creeped out and angry and like, God damn, fucking gnolls are just breeding. This will get worse, Seeing how they ran through like this big pack of just devouring everything, and then they kept getting stronger and stronger. Was the rumors we'd heard? Well, duh, they are getting stronger because all the hyenas they bring with them are just, transforming through this process. I like the idea of a blink one though. That would be kind of cool, where a gnoll is either has blink features to it, or kills blink dogs, and the shamanic magic of some sort distills their blood, or even their hide, or something.
Or maybe they found a way to capture an essence of a blink dog or a Displacer Beast, and one of their shaman came up with it, and now is, maybe there's just a small group of them, which is even more interesting because you could say, the first time you run into them, they have these properties, and you're like, holy shit, and then you run into another group of them, and they don't. Because maybe they haven't been, enchanted.
The other group hasn't figured out that if you stew a Displacer Beast's brains in its own skull, and eat it at a full moon, that this is what happens to you.
Yeah, or you can make them two different kind of squads. Like you've got the elite gnolls and the lesser elite, or the less foot soldier gnolls.
Yeah.
So that keeps the party kind of like. Is it the bad guy, like the super gnolls, or the less super gnolls?
Yeah.
So it doesn't. Yeah.
The cool thing with that too, gnoll, there's a Flind, which is an amped up gnoll that they put out in the Fiend Folio. They had a Flind bar, which was their weapon.
That's right.
But that's a standard thing that anybody has access to, right? And in the 3.0 stuff, and I think 4E and 5E has different changes. If you get which one is it? It's not the Xanthar's Guide. It's the previous one. Volo's Guide to Monsters. Volo's Guide has modifications and different versions of things. And this is just yet another way to go about it. Very cool. I like my favorite, though, so far, dude, is Rust Monster. I like that. That's just creepy as fuck. Cool. Got another one, or are you good there?
No, I picked two, but I think the whole lesson of this episode itself is get creative, take the monster, get creative, and don't stretch too far. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to take hours on thinking this stuff up. You can just take a particular trait of another monster and tack it on to one.
Well, one thing that you did there too was it sticks to the setting, sticks to the milieu of D&D, right? That setting, that fantasy trope, whatever it is. Gnolls having Blink-like powers or Displacer Beast powers because they use the hides or they ate the brains, or Rust Monster that is a slightly different variant. It fits within the setting. Right, Gnolls don't suddenly have laser pistols in a game that don't have laser pistols, or breathe fire in some strange way. Right, there's like almost a too far perspective, right, without even greater explanation as to why it would be different. I think what you did there was cool. I like that. Awesome.
Yeah. So what you got going on over there, Brett?
Well, I grabbed 3 of them: Otyughs, Yellow Musk Creepers, and Goblins. I brought up Goblins because I think one of my favorite variations of Goblins, and I did this to a couple of friends of mine, is the Nilbog, which is a Nilbogism, which is goblin spelled backwards. It's this nasty little thing that came up in the Fiend Folio. And this is kind of where when I first read this, I went, oh my god, every time you hit a Nilbog and you do damage, you heal it. If you try to cure light wounds on it, you wound it. It's basically a reverse goblin. And it is amazing fun throwing a pack of these small things at a group of players who can't figure it out, no clues, and they wail on them and wail on them, and watching these players just go bananas, trying to figure out how the hell they kill these things. You get a 5th level fighter taken down by 6 Nilbogs, or what he sees as goblins, because he can't kill them. He just has nothing to whack them with, So that kind of got my taste for it after I read that encounter. And one of the things I've done too then is keeping with just a step that was just a offhanded example of what I thought was just some crazy fun. One of my favorite things I've been messing with as of late, if you listen to the Streets of Babylon actual play, that I use Otyughs. And in a large city, one of the things I tried to do was figure out how the hell would a massive city like Avalon deal with all the waste, right? So there's the River Styx, which flows beneath Avalon. There's a entire guild of sanitary excavators that help make sure the river flows where it should. There's clean water here. The mess is sluiced away down here. I'm like, man, there's still going to be stuff. There's going to be dead bodies, debris, all this garbage and stuff. What the filth that's just going to pile up in certain areas, What would get rid of it? Otyughs. Otyughs eat garbage. So what I did with Otyughs was they, they're basically really large, big balls of garbage and dung-eating monsters. They're brutal and nasty, guard their territory fanatically, and so on, but they're also loved and cared for by different cadres within the Brotherhood of Sanitary Excavators. They need these things, like Vera, or they've got Vera, Old Stinky, Sore Thumb, whatever they want to name them, that live in key points within the sewer system. And they feed them and make sure they're clean, or not make sure they're clean, but make sure they've got plenty of fresh water and debris flows down. If things back up, they work around it and so on. But taking that creature, putting it down there, so the characters encounter an Otyugh, and the first time you run into it in the sewers, you think, a monster, right? So players attack said monster, defeat said monster, hooray! And then some guild members show up because they heard a fracas. They come trundling down and go, you killed Stinky, you sons of bitches! And they're mad at you. You're like, well, it's a monster. Oh, you bastards, that's Stinky. He cleans out the whole blah, blah, blah. Oh, my God. you just made enemies of this cadre of the Brotherhood of Sanitary Excavators because you killed their Otyugh. It's basically their mascot, if you will, that takes care of this section of the sewer system for them. So basically taking a creature like that and putting it in a city where it does some good despite its monstrous appearance. If I recall, I took inspiration from an old Ed Greenwood article. I think it may have been The Ecology of the Otyugh. I think he was the one who wrote it, and I distinctly remember, I have not found the article itself. I've got it buried somewhere in my collection, where a king or somebody used a Otyugh at the base of the cesspit for the same reason, right? To make sure that all the cesspool, the waste from the castle was crushed, cleaned, basically eaten, and sluiced out. And that was a place he would dump political enemies and stuff as well, because, it's like throwing them in a meat grinder. So that was just, I don't change the creature itself. I just change the setting and the way it's perceived in its location. It would be kind of like having a rust monster be the pet of a school of monks. They're all open hand. They don't believe in metal or anything like that. But just changing its setting or how its perception, its perception within the game setting. Like, wow, the Yautog isn't holy. The Yautog is a useful tool, like a guard dog or anything else. And when the players accidentally get stupid and fight the creature because, like, oh, it's a monster, you kill monsters and take their stuff, while they're looting the putrid corpse, the guild shows up and, you got some explaining to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Is it a good idea or you think it's terrible?
No, there's no terrible ideas, Brett.
Checking.
No, not at all.
Oh, there's terrible ideas, Sean. They're out
well,
there. They're out
there
there.
are, but
I've had them too. I know. I've been struck by terrible ideas in the past. This one I was pretty proud of because it's just fun. When the first time characters hit something like that or encounter it, like, it's a monster, but you need it, and it's disgusting, but you need it, So kind of fun. The other one I had was the Yellow Musk Creeper. And I talked about this briefly. Yellow Musk Creeper. I don't believe the only place I ever knew that existed was in the first edition Fiend Folio. Yellow Musk Creeper is a large plant, right? It's a climbing plant, so it's described as having vines and stuff with leaves like ivy, dark green buds, and flowers of an orchid, bright yellow in color with splashes of purple. Each plant will have 2 to 12 flowers and 1 to 4 buds. It extends over an area of up to 20 feet square. Typically, the plant is found in soily areas underground, although specimens have been identified in the heart of thick forests. Creeper can climb up trees and rock faces with equal facility. It is sometimes planted deliberately in locations where it will guard treasure. So here's the trick on this sucker. When you're approached within 10 feet, the creeper attacks. The flowers sway in a hypnotic way before the face of the victims. The successful hit indicates one of the flowers has puffed a dust-smelling musk into the victim's face. The victim then makes a saving throw against magic or be entranced and walk into the mass of the plant, resisting any attempts to restrain him and taking the remainder of the melee round to do so. Once you're at the heart of the plant, aerial roots attached to the skull, no hit required, and the brain is devoured at the rate of 1 to 4 intelligence points per round. Yummy. Once that's done, you get things called Yellow Musk zombies. The victims of the Yellow Musk Creeper, whose intelligence is reduced to 1 or 2 points. 1 or 2 points. So it's not like stupid. I mean, 1 or 2 is bad. But there's a level that I would have in my head. I always thought of like animal, like creepy, cunning would be left in there. The victim's mindless. The skin turns yellow and its eyes become fixed and glazed. In the victim's skull is a seed where it starts to germinate. This is how it makes new yellow musk creepers. So what I would do is, last time I had this was I put it in a room. I think I described this a while back, but I take these types of plants and I put it in a room where it's growing in a moist area, and the vines go floor to ceiling, almost like like the roots of a tree. Like if you dug up a tree, you'd see all these tendrils coming from the roots to the ceiling or crawling up the walls, whatever. And hanging in different sections throughout the room are these desiccated corpses with the vines and stuff poking through their heads, out the eye holes, whatever. You've got the weapons in hand and everything are wrapped up. They're just hanging there like sacks. Usually at the center, and usually at the center of it is a treasure. It's a thing that they got to have. So, yeah, in the center of the room, or somewhere in that area where the Yellow Musk Creeper is and the zombies all hanging from the vines and stuff, is a thing the characters need, want, or something at least interesting to entice them in. Now, obviously, what happens then is they come in, and the things start to sway and move. The vines move around and whatever. The flowers are moving. The zombies are attacking. It gets kind of crazy, whatever. So Normally, the monster itself and the creatures it talks about in the rulebook is like saying, hey, you're making these saving throws and doing this stuff in the event itself. What I do is 2 events later, right? 2 days later in game time, or sometimes even a session later, have somebody make a Constitution save in a modern game, or a save versus paralysis, or a save versus whatever. Magic, if that happens to be the thing. And they say, why? So, well, just make a save. Okay. If they make it, I'm like, hey, you're not feeling really good. You kind of got a headache, and you got like this pounding right behind your eyes. If they fail, they get the headache, and they start coughing. And when they cough in their hand, they've got this yellowish mucus, which is kind of gross.
Ew.
So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the effects of the creature and making them last longer than they're supposed to by the rule. So you're infected. You've been exposed to a thing. And the only way I've had players stop this problem is if they've encountered it once, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice type of thing. So what happens is that if they ever encounter it again, they're done with the fight. Everybody, you get done with the room, you get out, you strip, and you clean your clothes. You wash stuff, you cast purified food and water, you do something to clean yourself. Wash, do something to get the stuff off of you, because otherwise, basically, you're covered in the spores and things of this yellow musk creeper plant monster. It just kind of clings to you and works on you. I have also thought about doing this, haven't done it yet, where if it's outside, if you put this creature in like a swamp or something like that, and the players, after they encounter the monster, they deal with it, they deal with the zombies. All right, cool, we killed the fucking thing, or we escaped, or whatever it is. They're sleeping in the swamp, right? They wake up and make a perception check, make a saving throw of some sort, and when they get up, they feel like they're kind of, everything's tight, like they just can't quite seem to get moving. Their muscles are hurting. Everything's kind of sore. Well, you sleep in a swamp, whatever. If they pay attention, realize what's happening is these little tendrils are growing out of their skin and hooking into the ground around them. They're basically covered in these spores, which are trying to latch into the earth and then burrow their way into the character and then kill them, turning them basically into living compost heaps for the plant.
Whoa.
So that's it's kind of like the rust monster in a way, and it's got the creep factor where it's a plant that's slowly trying to eat you or dissolve you, or when you stay in contact with other plant matter or loamy soil or whatever it is, it tries to sprout roots and hold you down at some point and just destroy you. You can do a cure disease or whatever else you want to get rid of the plant problem, the infestation you have. But what I'm doing is basically taking the effects of the creature and dragging it out. So then that monster's impact is not just that time. It's longer. It's kind of like, and I took a cue from, again, to your point about mixing things up, is lycanthropy. So your lycanthrope bites you, and you see me make the first save. Sometimes, depending on the system, you may have to make another one a day later. Or if you failed, nothing happens till first full moon. Potentially the character forgets about it, or a player forgets about it. Reading some poisons. Back in the day, you'd have 2-3 different saving throws you'd have to make to see how it affected you. There's like the initial hit and then potentially something later on. So I like the idea of having a lingering effect like this. You were exposed to this creature. It's a nefarious, horrible thing that has multiple ways to continue to expand its breeding by eating through you in one way, shape, or form. It either does it there in the confines of his little yellow musk creeper domain, or if you go too far away and you're infected, that's fine. You're just going to carry the spores somewhere else, which I find to be quite creepy and gruesome and a lot of fun to do too.
Sounds fantastic.
So I'm going to go back to my goblins for a second, Sean. When I run goblins, one of the things I've done to get players to think they're even less of a threat than usual is I make them kind of clowny and goofy. Have you ever done that?
Kind of like Three Stooges goofy?
Yeah, damn near. We're like, oh, don't hurt us. It's just Grishnak. Oh, no, don't hurt us. I mean,
well,
they're cowardly and craven and begging for mercy all the time. And
yeah, I don't think that's, I think I've played them similar to that on occasion.
Have you ever used it where they bait the characters?
I have not, but I think it would work well using the what is it, the Bard spell, where it would be like make a save, otherwise you gotta.
Yeah, I did. I had a group of goblins, and I did this to prove a point to some guys in second edition because they were like very high level, 10, 15th level characters type of thing. 10, I think 10 or 12 actually. One guy's a paladin, and he's pretty kick-ass. And so these goblins start pestering them on horseback in the rocks. And they're getting annoyed because they can't seem to chase the goblins down. Because the goblins do the little hit and run tactics, right? Run up, twing, twing, twing. You kill a couple of goblins. Run away. Then they take off. And then finally it happens, and as the goblins start to run away, one of them jumps up on a rock, drops his pants, and starts wiggling his butt. Just full moon, like, ha, 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 stupid adventurers. Picking on them and just goading them. And knowing my players at the time, like, oh, that's fucking it. That is it. We chased the little bastard down. It was a trap. So they just come barreling into this little box canyon, and then on top of it are like 50 goblins with boulders. Just raining death on the party. Like, oh, son of a fucking goblins. So if you encounter my goblins and they seem like they're craven little weaklings, the chances are they're also probably, they're chaotic evil, so they're going to be a little nasty in the background. But I do tend to take those creatures and instead of back in the day everything fought to the death, I love to have them surrender. Because they're cowardly, they're craven, they're conniving, they're secretive. They would probably kill you in your sleep. But he's really pathetic right now. He's just really sad. He's got great big, anime eyes, and he just loves it so much, life, and just really, please don't kill me, Mr. Adventurer, sir. And that's a fun way to just twist on it, because the goblin knows, how does he survive? He's a bootlicking toady when the orcs come around. That's how he makes sure he stays around, right? When the big boss comes up, he's just kissing ass and licking toes the whole way through. Well, you're the next big thing, so however, you turn your back on a little fucker and he'll steal stuff or stab you or do whatever he thinks he needs to do. Sean, do you have any other critters that you like to mess with? Or that you thought of while we're talking here?
No, not that I can think of. I mean, there's plenty I would probably modify or tweak or play in a particular way, but
I like the idea, basically what I think we've come up with here is, you take your Yellow Musk Creeper and I'm extending it. You take its reach or whatever it is and you just draw it out so it happens over a longer period of time. The Otyugh is all setting based, so we've changed the creature insofar as just how it's perceived and how it's utilized. And what you did with the Rust Monsters and the Gnolls was take other factors within the D&D verse. I've got Blink Gnolls, or Displaced Gnolls potentially. And then the Rust Monsters just flip the script and have them be carrion monsters. They eat rotten meat or dead meat of some sort, leather of course. And you'd think if it gets hungry enough, it'll make its own dead meat. Might not eat you right away, but it'll kill you, and come back and slurp the goodness off your bones. I like that. Because it's just taking something a little bit normal and add a tweak to it. You don't have to do this all the time, but it's one of those ways where if you stay creative like this as a game master, and you throw these little changes out there, it makes your old school jaded players not go, it's a bugbear, it's a green slime, it's one of these. Get the torches, don't hit it with lightning, don't care about lightning, bring this out, it's a troll. You take that troll and it doesn't, and fire doesn't hurt it. Why? Because it's different. You take it and flip it. It's only damaged by frost or something different. You just change something as simple as that. And it has a big impact, especially on that group of players who are very used to a certain thing. And I love the idea of what does that flesh-eating rust monster now do, right? As you described, what does its lair look like? You see the hide peeled off of a raccoon. That's weird, right? An adventurer's horse is dead, and there's big strips of flesh torn off the back, or the saddlebags are gone. The horse is beat up, but all the leather straps are gone. That's weird. Dead adventurers, crushed, smashed, bloody, broken, battered, and beaten. All of his leather goods are gone. All the metal's still there. All the gold, everything's there. But what's this? I like the idea of looking at the creature, the tweaks you've done, and then figure out what does that ecology mean, and by that I'm talking about the clues it leaves behind. So when you start to show those clues, those little hints of what's coming up to your players, to have them go, what the fuck is this? Right? That's the idea. So you take all that cool thing you did, and then think about, as Sean said, what does that do? What kind of spoor does it leave behind? What telltale signs or tracks is it putting in the environment, be it dungeon, wherever, that your character's now going to have to dig up? It's got. You think about the movie Aliens, the old Aliens movies. Spoiler, they have acidic blood and sticky, slimy stuff. You know that part in the movie, like, ugh, slimy, ugh, acid. You're like, ah, Christ, aliens are coming. You want to have that same, ew, gross, that feeling that something's coming, but you don't want the, it's obviously aliens because it's an aliens movie. You want the, something's coming, I don't know what the hell it is, because this is different. And by doing what we've talked about here, I think that will help get you a little bit different. So cool. If you've got ideas or anything, lay it on us, man. If you've got a favorite monster tweak you've done, and I think doing things like dragons and big creatures like that is kind of passé to me in a way, because everybody modifies dragons. Everybody fucks with that stuff. I like thinking about the small stuff, the gnolls, your half CR creatures, your common everyday critter, the goblin, the kobold, the rust monster, the Otyugh. How do you modify those things? Because those are the things that, especially at low-level play, it makes low-level play pretty fucking interesting, because all of a sudden all the things that your players are used to is different now. So I think it's good stuff. Anything else on that, Sean?
No, let's hit die roll.
Let's die roll it up.
Die roll. Brett, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I've got one. You stole my other one.
Sorry.
So that's okay. I found him like, I'm going to do this one. Oh, Sean had it in there. So our good friends over at Atlas Obscura, they always have some interesting stuff. So this one's about a chained coffin, the Hassel Grave. Mysterious chains and iron stakes adorn this strange grave with no explanation. So, of course, there's plenty of good reasons why any good gamer would want to have iron stakes and chains around a coffin or a burial site of any kind. But this one, the burial plot's cornered by 4 iron stakes draped with heavy chains, and a huge slate slab covers the grave. It remains a mystery as to exactly why these chains were placed here back in the 1850s, but they still stand to this day. I love looking at some of the different, when I get a chance and I see something like this as far as a burial custom, and then even if it's odd, old, or something that isn't done today, or done by a different culture, it's something you can take and then it becomes different enough that you can implant it in a setting. If it's real world, it's just great fodder for, hey, this ancient civilization of the Mayans or whomever had this burial custom. Or if you take it and modify it, drop it into your D&D type world, it becomes something kind of cool and potentially creepy. So anyway, the chain grave, link in the show notes. Sean, what have you got, man?
So you want to run a Blades in the Dark one-shot by Platonic Solids on Medium. So Platonic has a article on Medium that outlines how to run Blades in the Dark one-shot.
Interesting.
And then second one, Investigator Images, a curated list of yearbooks for Call of Cthulhu by MDoc31 on his Rolling Boxcars blog. So on his blog, he has a lot of yearbooks from like 1901 to like 1930, just a plethora of them, including some black schools for African Americans that are like 5 of them that are listed.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so you can, if you want to look for the right image for your investigator, it's a good resource there.
Those things are handy just to grab the look, the feel for NPCs and your PCs and such. And, excuse me, unless I miss my guess, yearbooks also have some local colors, thoughts, and different potential other photos and stuff in there too. So that's pretty cool. Neat find, man.
Let's see. Third one, 6 foot tall, 100,000 piece Lego Bat Cave.
That's a big Bat Cave.
It is, and it's really cool. And the attention to detail is the article. It's on Gizmodo, but the attention to detail on this thing, and it's got a little video that goes through all the little nooks and crannies of it. I won't spoil it for you, but it's something to check out if you're a Lego, Batman, or geek fan.
It's not just the cave itself; it is also the manor on top of it.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Talk about some time investment. I don't even know how you create. I think they have Lego creators that you can like.
Also, I don't know.
Do blueprint plans.
The time though, the time. Oh my god.
Yeah. And then lastly, HBO orders first Game of Thrones prequel pilot, reported by The Hollywood Reporter. So they're going back to the origins of the White Walkers, is my understanding, and some of the origins of or some of the things that they allude to in the present books and series on HBO, and they're going backwards. So that should be interesting.
Interesting. Oh,
Yes.
We do have one from a listener. We have Carlin of the Hill People pointed out Quest, the role-playing adventure game for everyone. It's got a little Kickstarter there. It ends on June 29th. This show drops on what? 11/12, June 13th, if I'm recalling correctly. Mm-hmm. Yes. So by the time you see this, it'll still be going for a couple more days. But yeah, they're funded. They have a little over $88,000 of the $65,000 goal. I took a look at this when he put it out there. It looked kind of cool. So, yeah, take a look at it. See what you think. As always, Kickstart at your own risk. But I think some of these are kind of cool looking. And if nothing else, it's interesting to see what other creative people are putting together. So, very cool. Thank you, Carlin.
So what are we talking about next week, Brett?
Well, we've been talking about monsters and just different things and kind of style of play, even if we go back to my feelings episode. I want to talk about running away versus surrender, because we've talked about this before, the whole balance versus imbalance, and I felt that it was a good kind of a segue out of monsters and such. What are the benefits, so and so? How do you run away? It's not always as easily as just go and surrender, and just kind of the impacts and stuff in your game and so on. So we'll dig into that next time, see where it leads us.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's been this episode of Gaming and BS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This episode of Gaming and BS is brought to you with the help from the following BSers: Mark CMG Clover, Andy Hall, Corey Wynn, Graham Meinert, and Joe Swick. Brett's biggest fan, Forrest Aguirre, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Eric Jeppesen, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Remy Bellodo, Jason Hobbs, Wayne Humfleet, James Carpio, Pure Mongrel, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnston, Brandon Barnes, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, The Lost Sailor, Misdirected Mark Productions, Christopher Gray, Finnulf, Mirko Froelich, Eileen Barnes, Tony Sugarloaf Baker, Todd Crapper, Alexander Auerbach, Neil Benson, Chris Steele, Eric Hoffman, Kyle Winter, Curtis Takahashi, Mark Tasaka, Larry Hout, Ray Otis, Ron Bishop, Craig Huber, Xavier G, JV, John Hammersley, The Closet Gamer, John Steve, Jared Rasher, Mark Richmond, Thomas Hook, Blake Ryan, Chad Glayman, Sky, Roger Braslett, Evan Harrison Cass, Craig, Howard Bishop, Jim Fitzpatrick, Peter Skanes, Knights of the Night Crew, Josh Wallace, Corey Welch, Eli Kurtz, Thierry Tertianen, Edwin Nagy, Bruce Cunnington, Aaron Coleman, Tim Short, Stefan Dragonspawn, Aonagus, Roll for Guild, Gordon Cranford, Eric Salzwedel, George Sedgwick, Kevin Lovecraft, Matt Cyberlick, Jack Neller, Robert Nemeth, Eric Bonts, and Palladian. For ways to support the show, head over to gamingandbs.com/support-us. Thanks, BSers!
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.